Hi guys, this tutorial is being made in response to a couple of the platform games that was made last year. Students wanted to make a platform game that was in a 3D style but still operated in sort of the 2D world of a normal scrolling platform game, which meant that the character can only move left or right and they can only jump up and down. They can't go, in this case, in the x-axis into the distance or towards us. This makes for quite an interesting style of game actually, to see this sort of physics being put together, this style of 3D animation. The main problem is though, how can we make it so that if our character is going this way, we then want to turn around? How can we make that change without the character sort of turning slightly around this way and then coming off into the distance or falling off of either side? How can we ensure that our players aren't going to make the character go off into the distance, which would spoil the game? We want to instantly be able to turn left or right. So this isn't a full demonstration of how to make a platform game, because you can use the other tutorials. What I've done is I've created a cube, which is this thing. I've created some floors as well, but this is our main player. I've said for this main player, there's a left sensor to make it move left on the y-axis, and there's a right keyboard sensor with a motion actuator to make it move right. There's also a jump actuator using linear velocity. I've used a value of 8 here. And I've used basically like an AND gate to make sure that we can jump, but we can't jump unless we're touching the floor. So if I press, I've also created a character and parented it to it. So this character doesn't actually do anything. I'll show you that in a second. So just look at the grey cube for a second. If I go to the right, it goes right. If I go to the left, it goes left. Obviously the character isn't changing direction. And if I press space, it jumps in the air. And if I keep pressing space, it doesn't keep jumping, even if it wants to carry on jumping. Right, okay, so all I need to do basically is make this invisible and stick my character inside of it, and that should work nicely. Apart from the fact that the character isn't facing the right way. Now, what we don't want to be doing is rotating this cube, because if we bang into anything, there's a chance that during the rotation it won't square itself out, and it might actually end up going off sort of, if I twist it this way, going off the edge of the world, which is not what we want. So what we do want to be able to do is just to move the puppet around inside of this cube. So all the programming's inside the main cube. I'll demonstrate that again. We can go left, right, we can press space to jump up and down. Now what we need to do is add some programming to this guy. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a game property, and I'm going to call it direction. I'm going to set it to integer, and I'm going to set a value of 1. And what I'm basically going to do is I'm going to say that if I press the key to go right using the right arrow, then I want to create a property. I want to assign the direction 1. And if I go left, then for that property, let's call it left, I want to assign it 0. So now basically, if I press the right key, it won't do anything apart from make this go to 1. It's already on 1, so I should be facing this way. And if I press left, it should make it go to 0. And then it's dead easy, because we can use that actually to change the direction of the character. So let's add a motion actuator. Let's call it direction. You'll see it hasn't got all of the dynamic stuff. Let's think, it's going to rotate around the z-axis, rotation z. And every time we press one of them, we want it to rotate 180 degrees. So let's add 2 property sensors. So the first one we'll call left. So we're basically going to say that we'll call it left change. So we're going to say that if the direction equals 0, then spin it 180 degrees. However, if the right, so we'll create a right change property, if the direction equals 1, what we're not going to do is wire it up to this. What we're going to do is we're going to take it over and wire it straight to the actuator. So what we've done is we've created 2 separate AND logic gates connected to the same actuator. And you can see that if the property ever equals 0, we'll turn 180 degrees. If the property ever equals 1, we'll turn 180 degrees. And by pressing left and right, we're changing the property between 1 and 0. Now, will he be facing the right direction? If he's not, we can just change the direction from 1 to 0. Let's see. Okay, let's see if that works. Now when I press start, what it's actually doing is it's actually constantly changing the direction. So just like when we use jump, we need to go back into these properties and turn on tap. Tap, remember, means it will only do it once. Let's see if that works. So I'll press right and he goes right, I press left and he goes left. So it is working, it's just working in the opposite sense to what we want. So the easy way to get around that is just to go back to our property and just change it from 1 to 0. And that should mean that it starts in a different direction. There we go. So if I press left, he goes left, and if I press right, he goes right. Perfect. And he's done a perfect 180 rotation. So all I'm going to do for this now is I'm going to set this to be invisible. I'm going to set our main character to be inside of it. So if I press P, we've now got a character that can jump. Obviously we've not animated anything, so we've not animated any legs or arms. That's something you guys can do by following the dynamic character animation tutorial. But if you're making a character, just go left and right. This is the easiest way to do it. What I've got here is a more advanced example of how a platform game can be created. So I've just created a sky dome. I've created different animated moving parts, so things that go up and down, tunnels that take you onto different levels. So if I go inside the character, again this game took me about an hour and a half to create, so only 3 levels. But it just goes to show what you can do in terms of creating a 3D game. So we've animated some bad guys that if I collide with them, it's going to restart the level. And I've made it so you've got to collect a certain amount of coins before it triggers the gate to open at the top. And I've created sort of like a trampoline here that shoots me up in the air. And that opens the gate because I collected all the coins. Now you can see here I've put the gate at the start of the game, which means I've got to actually progress throughout the game and try and get to the end of the level to collect all the coins. But then I've got to get back again. And this actually makes it slightly more frustrating because you could get through the level and get all the coins, but then sort of die on your way back. So it does get progressively harder as we go. I'm not going to play all of this. I just wanted to show you what you can do. Awesomeness rating, well, if you're making a 2D platform game, well, a 2D physics platform game in a 3D style, then I suppose it's going to be really awesome. However, if you're not doing that, it's not going to be particularly helpful to you. Just something for you to be aware of. See you next time.